A lot of you guys have been hitting up my Twitter account asking me for a Deshaun Watson update. And typically, when I try to bring you guys a Deshaun Watson update, I try to give you a trade update and a civil case update all in the same video. And then hopefully I try not to make another Deshaun Watson video for another month or so after, because things have gone really slow on that front. But we got a lot of information in this video, man. So before we get to the content, I want to let you know we already announced our first Instagram giveaway winner. Congrats to Malachi for winning $500 for being a follower on my Instagram. We're running back that same giveaway to any follower on my Instagram account, and on top of that, we're giving away a subscriber that turns on our notifications, $500 as well. Now that we get all that out of the way, I think we could all agree on one thing, and that's that traditional banks stink. They charge $35 in overdraft fees. They charge you fees for having a checking and a savings account. They don't give cash back on debit card purchases. Their apps are slow and clunky to use. They send you alerts in the mail, and they put you on hold for hours to talk to a human being, which is why I recommend Albert. Albert is completely different from any bank account that you've ever used. They are free to sign up with and super easy to use. Instead of just opening a traditional savings account and hoping that you put money into it, Albert looks at your income and expenses and sees what kind of money you can save. They will automatically move money into your savings account even if it's a few dollars at a time. Albert never charges overdraft fees ever. As a matter of fact, instead they'll spot you up to $250 whenever you need it. But most importantly, for me, you guys all know I'm a freaking dumbass, especially when it comes to managing my money, which is why Albert has something called Genius, which is a team of financial experts that will look at your situation, help you make a plan, and help you out whenever you get stuck. So click the link in the description box to download Albert today. For a limited time, when you open a checking account and submit a qualifying direct deposit, you'll get $150. Or just go to albert.com/microphone to open up your checking account, submit a qualifying direct deposit, and make yourself a free $150. And thank you, Albert, for the sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I had to record this video 3 separate times because there's so much freaking information in this video, guys. And this all begins with one of the biggest surprises of the past week. And that's the fact that the Miami Dolphins decided to fire their head coach, Brian Flores. Immediately after the firing of Brian Flores, there are a bunch of conspiracy theories that have come up. One being the fact that the owner of the Miami Dolphins wanted to tank in 2019, but Brian Flores didn't, and that's the moment where the relationship first started to go sideways. So this is kind of strange, because if you remember back in 2019, the Miami Dolphins had a slogan, "Let's tank for Tua." Then eventually Joe Burrow started ascending the ranks, and then apparently, according to this article, Brian Flores, in the middle of the Tennessee Titans game versus the Miami Dolphins, went on a crazy curse-filled rant and had a meltdown where he said he needed better play from the quarterback, and Tua Tagovailoa said that Brian Flores doesn't know how to talk to people. There's also this one incident where Brian Flores literally said to Tua Tagovailoa, "Hey, I should have picked Mac Jones over you." The direct quote apparently was, "If I knew you were going to be this bad, I would have picked Mac Jones." Now, I also did some digging and found this tweet from Eric Lambert that says that when Flores saw one young player in recent months, he told him, "Don't come to my office talking about playing time." The player had no such intentions. But multiple sources said he treated players in different ways. A veteran such as Jason McCourty wouldn't be treated with that same heavy hand. He was stern with some, but joked around with some guys. It was hard to read him. Do you know who else had a similar coaching style? None other than Vince Lombardi, literally. According to the late Henry Jordan, he said of Lombardi, "He treats us all the same, like dogs." It was a funny line, but wildly inaccurate. Lombardi's genius was that he treated us all differently. One day during my first year I played for him, he rode me unmercifully, pointing out how slow I was and how weak I was, how stupid I was. He convinced me by the time I dragged myself into the locker room, I suspected that I was the worst guard in league history. I sat in front of my locker, head down, contemplating quitting, when Lombardi came up behind me, mussed up my hair, and said, "Son, one of these days you're going to be the greatest guard in the league." Suddenly I was 10 feet tall and I was ready to do anything for him. So it's really hard to say, because I feel like it's intelligent to treat your players in different ways, but you might be wondering, Mike, how does this lead up to Deshaun Watson? And now, this entire story is a huge mess, so do your absolute best to stay with me here. So, according to Benjamin Albright, the understanding was Brian Flores wanted Deshaun Watson, and the owner, Stephen Ross, did too. Watson came extremely close to being a Dolphin in October, and just needed the last 3 or 4 civil suits to agree to settle. If you remember, right before the trade deadline on this channel, we made it seem like Deshaun Watson was definitely going to be on the Miami Dolphins by the conclusion of the trade deadline. And it was leaked to the media that the Miami Dolphins offered 3 first-round picks and some other assets for Deshaun Watson, and they had an agreement in place. But ultimately, they backed out because of Deshaun Watson's legal issues, despite Deshaun Watson being able to play that year. Now, as a result of Brian Flores getting fired, the Miami Dolphins may have lost out on Deshaun Watson, because before you had the Miami Dolphins, an up-and-coming team with an identity that was starting to form under their head coach, Brian Flores. They had Jalen Waddle absolutely ball out this year. Their defense is pretty good as well. And on top of that, you're living in Miami, so you're getting great weather, nice beaches, no state income taxes. But according to Ian Rappaport 5 days ago, he said Dolphins coach Brian Flores was a significant reason why Deshaun Watson wanted to be in Miami. With Flores out, this situation may have changed. You might be wondering, okay, this is just Ian Rappaport, this isn't that big of a deal, but unfortunately that very same day, Dolphins owner Steve Ross said that he had no plans on pursuing Deshaun Watson. It will be up to the head coach and what he does with the quarterback. I have a lot of confidence in Tua, and it will be up to the head coach in what he wants to do with the position. If that wasn't enough to convince you that the Dolphins no longer want Deshaun Watson, well, Adam Schefter just tweeted out a few days later that with Brian Flores out in Miami, the chances of the Dolphins pursuing or acquiring Texans QB Deshaun Watson are greatly diminished, if not gone. Per sources, Flores had an interest in exploring a Watson deal, but others in the organization, including owner Stephen Ross, did not. Schefter continues to say that another source insisted today that the Dolphins were all on the same page and they all wanted Deshaun Watson, 100%. Pro Football Talk is verifying all of these stories as well, saying that I ran by someone in the know this new narrative that Stephen Ross never wanted Deshaun Watson. Source says that Ross was obsessed with getting Deshaun Watson. Aaron Wilson also said Dolphins owner Stephen Ross wanted Deshaun Watson to settle his lawsuits at trade deadline, a tough 11th hour ask, and the trade never came together. Miami conducted due diligence, hiring local counsel in Houston to look into the likelihood of potential criminal charges. So you might be wondering, well, Mike, if that's the case, what's next? Well, we need to talk about teams other than the Miami Dolphins, because it seems like they're going to move forward with Tua Tagovailoa. So a couple days ago, the Houston Texans came out and said that we have a target to trade Deshaun Watson on March 16th. This was before Black Monday. This was before Brian Flores got fired. Now that Brian Flores got fired, 2 new theories have entered the fold, both having to do with Brian Flores and Deshaun Watson. The question is, where are they going to go together? So yesterday, the Houston Texans have completed an interview with Brian Flores for their head coaching position. This was after they fired their lame duck head coach, Brian Culley. And the reason I'm saying he's a lame duck head coach is pretty much, I'm assuming the Texans knew that this was going to be a down year. They probably were, I wouldn't even be surprised if they were intentionally tanking for a top pick because they are so depleted of assets. And then they were going to go after their actual head coach for the future this year. Now, what's interesting is that according to Jason La Canfora, there's growing sentiment around the league that the Houston Texans will land Brian Flores, which makes things very interesting because Deshaun Watson initially wanted out of Houston because he wasn't involved in personnel decisions, which is a theme that has been going on in the entire NFL. We talked about it with Aaron Rodgers last year. We talked about it with Russell Wilson last year as well. And ultimately, that was a huge reason why Deshaun Watson demanded a trade. The owner of the Houston Texans, Cal McNair, told Deshaun Watson that, hey, you will be involved in personnel decisions, and ultimately he was not involved in personnel decisions. But I gotta admit, man, Nick Caserio, if he is able to get Brian Flores, it definitely changes things for Houston. Could it be that the Houston Texans hire Brian Flores, and as a result, Deshaun Watson decides to stay in Houston? Because you also have to bear in mind, would Brian Flores even want the Houston Texans job? if Deshaun Watson would not stay in Houston, there are much better head coaching vacancies out there, man. The Chicago Bears is a pretty sick job, and they already have a remarkable defense. Jacksonville Jaguars isn't that bad of a job, but I'm sure Flores already kind of has like some PTSD from dealing with the general manager that he doesn't agree with. You could sit back and see what happens with the Las Vegas Raiders as well. And of course, there's the New York Giants, which Brian Flores and Deshaun Watson are also linked to. So ultimately, what happens to Deshaun Watson probably has a lot to do with what happens in this head coaching search. But you might be wondering, okay, Mike, what about the legal update? Well, the most I have for you right now is back in October, Deshaun Watson offered $100,000 to settle one of his lawsuits against him. Apparently, of the 22 plaintiffs, 18 were ready to settle, and the person who gave a copy of the proposed agreement to thedailybeast.com rejected the offer. Since all couldn't be settled, none were settled. Ever since then, the civil lawsuits quietly have proceeded, with multiple plaintiffs being questioned under oath. Watson is eligible to be questioned under oath after the Super Bowl. There's still a criminal investigation that's still lingering as well, and we reported that the grand jury investigating the case was expected to conclude its work by the end of January. So this is, at least in the lens of football, and of course, assuming that Watson is innocent, because if he's not innocent, then of course he deserves the charges coming against him. But if he is innocent, this is definitely a shame for a football fan, because there were already 18 of these 22 cases that were ready to be settled, and we could have potentially seen Deshaun Watson returning in October. He could have potentially been a Miami Dolphin if these cases were settled. But as a result of these cases not being settled, now this has proceeded to go to court, and multiple plaintiffs are being questioned under oath as a result of it. So this article states that Deshaun Watson was willing to give a massage therapist $100,000 in order to just make this problem go away. And it's kind of unique because you don't typically see these types of details being leaked out to the press. So we're probably going to get a ton of information on the Deshaun Watson case by the end of January. I hope he didn't do anything bad, man. It's impossible for me to know. And ultimately, what happens with this case could dictate the future of the NFL. Could we see Deshaun Watson and Brian Flores both on the New York Giants? Well, according to Jordan Schultz, both Deshaun Watson and Brian Flores have been in touch and are planning to play on the same team together next year. This is exactly the story. Developing story, Deshaun Watson and Brian Flores have been in constant communication trying to navigate a scenario where they go to the same team. Per sources, Watson trusts and likes Flores and has been adamant internally that he'd like to play for him next season. Sources say Deshaun Watson has expressed a strong desire internally to play for the New York Giants, ideally with Brian Flores coaching, where he could also reestablish his brand in the league's top market. Now, it's important to note that John Mara has already come out and said that depending on who our next general manager is, they could decide what we do with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones isn't a definite to stay on the New York Giants, and you have to bear in mind that every single time a brand new general manager comes in, especially if it's a brand new general manager and a brand new head coach that comes in, typically they move on and they select a quarterback of their own choosing. And in this case, it looks like that quarterback could potentially be Deshaun Watson. Now, bear in mind, Jordan Schultz is very hit or miss as an insider. No disrespect to him. There's been times where he's come out and gave us some really cool low-key news that we wouldn't get from any other insider. And then there's times where he's come out and given a sketchy report here and there. So we're going to keep an eye out on this information because I just got this news as I was editing this video, and I felt like I'd pass it on to you guys because Jordan Schultz also says that on the flip side, Flores, who nearly orchestrated Deshaun's trade to the Dolphins, believes his best chance to build a winner is with Watson, even if it means going to a less talented roster. I'm told they often speak daily. So Brian Flores and Deshaun Watson, what a dynamic duo if that ends up happening. This completely changes the trajectory of the New York Giants, who, with all due respect, I've said this over and over again, the New York Giants have a pretty damn good offense. They got Saquon Barkley, Kadarius Toney looks like a baller. Kenny Golladay was a baller until he went to the New York Giants, so you don't just magically stop being good at the game of football. And he got paid big bucks to go there. I feel like there is a foundation for this team. They've invested heavily in their offensive line, and bringing in Deshaun Watson on top of that could be an absolute game changer that could bring the New York Giants back to where they need to be. If you're a Giants fan, let me know what you guys think about this news, man, because this is absolutely insane to me. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.